What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So, Michigan State unfortunately loses 38-7 to Ohio State on Saturday night in Spartan Stadium. A night that, listen, there was energy in that stadium. It was juiced up. Mark D'Antonio going into the Ring of Fame, getting honored after the first quarter, and there was a lot of hype in this game. And the first half especially felt like that. Michigan State brought it in the first half, especially. Second half was a little bit different of a story, but overall, improvement, in my opinion, against the Buckeyes for Michigan State from the last couple years. Now, if you just look at the scoreboard and the stats, it might not seem like that. I mean, last year the score was 38-3. I think 2 years prior to that, it was 49-20. So yes, the scoreboard doesn't look different. But if you actually watch the game, it did look a little different, at least the first half. But we're going to get into it a little bit, talk about some positives and negatives coming from this game, and then obviously what's coming up now here in a couple days as we play at Oregon on Friday night. So doesn't get any easier for Michigan State. But we're going to talk about that real quick. If you could, though, just hit that like and subscribe button down there for more content going forward. Basketball heating up too. First exhibition, not this upcoming Sunday, the Sunday after. So about 2 weeks out from seeing some exhibition action, practice happening, and whatnot. So a lot more Michigan State content coming up on the channel. So what did we ask for coming into this game? At least for myself, I won't speak for all Spartan fans, but what did we want to see? We wanted to see competitiveness on the field. We didn't want to get blown off the field like it seemed like we had for the past 5-7 years, aside from like one or two outliers, really, since like 2016. We wanted to see that. We wanted to see compete. Did we think we were going to lose this game? We were 23.5. Well, I think that's what it closed at, underdogs going into this game. You don't expect to win that game, but what did we ask for? We're like, if we compete, we lose by 20, like something like that, 17-20, you're feeling pretty good. Score, obviously, a little bit different than that, but overall, especially the first half, as I kind of mentioned before, it looked a lot different. And I kind of just want to start out with the positives here. Positives, I'm starting out with penalties because the first 3 games of the season, if you remember the recap shows from those, what do we talk about? Penalties, double-digit penalties, first 3 games of the season. Last week against Boston College, that got cleaned up. Then this week, again, another positive improvement, only 2 penalties for 19 yards. So incredible turnaround there and execution from the penalty standpoint. Next up, the rush defense. What was one of MSU's strengths coming into this game? Well, their strengths were the rush defense and getting to the quarterback. They didn't get to the quarterback like they had the previous 4 games of this season, but the rush defense, my opinion, still solid. Ohio State came in to the game averaging about 7 yards a carry or so, around that. And this game, the Michigan State defense held them to 5.3 yards per carry. So I thought that was a positive going forward in this Michigan State schedule, the opponents that they play coming up later this month and going forward the rest of the season. I think that's a positive that you can lean on that rush defense to get stops up the middle from that front. And to be honest, I don't have this written on here in my notes either, but I thought the secondary played pretty well. If you look at Ohio State's receiving, there was really no big explosives like we've seen in the last couple years, like a 70-yard touchdown, or like we've seen from Ohio State this year, taking a screen pass that's caught 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, 70 yards downfield for a touchdown. We didn't see that. The longest catch that Ohio State had was a 33-yard catch. They had a 27 and a 29 in there as well. But for the most part, like, yes, they still had Emeka Egbuka go off for 96 yards, and then Jeremiah Smith, but I mean, after the Alabama game, probably the second best or most talented wide receiver, and the 2 kids are freshmen, true freshmen, but Parnell Tate, 52 yards. So, I mean, yes, they still got their yards through the air, but it wasn't the big explosives that we've been accustomed to seeing, especially over the last couple years. So I thought that was a positive as well, even though I don't have it written down in my notes here. Next up, first half, Aiden Childs. First half, he was 10 for 12, 143 yards, and a touchdown. He was clean, getting out of the pocket, making plays. We didn't see any of the Boston College game, the run around the backfield, then scramble for 14 yards. I think he did have one of those, but it got called back for a penalty. I thought the game plan, especially in the first half, was really good. I mean, I think the game plan as a whole was how you needed to approach this game to beat Ohio State. But Aiden Childs especially after the conversation going around after the Boston College game last week, I thought this was an incredible game, especially in the first half from Aiden Childs. Let me just say this. Aiden Childs isn't the reason you lost this game. I think he was very efficient. I mean, that first drive was really efficient. It started Nate Carter getting a crease and getting outside for a long run there. And then I think that was his 19-yarder carry there for Nate Carter, and then was able to slip out of the pocket, get some nice check downs to Parachek, and then hit a couple other nice plays as well to move you downfield. And then, well, you have the decision that 4th and 1 decision that I'll get to in the negative because it is there. But thought that was a positive overall. And Jerron Glover, I thought he looked good, obviously coming back from injury. 4 for 53 yards and a touchdown. I thought he was solid, had good hands, made some good plays as well. Obviously, he scored MSU's lone touchdown in this game. So excited to have him back out there healthy for Michigan State. Next up, switching over to the defense, Jordan Turner and Malik Spencer. I thought they both stood out on the defensive side of the ball. 9 tackles for Jordan Turner and a half a tackle for loss. 7 tackles and a half a tackle for loss for Malik Spencer. Had a pass deflection as well that should have been an interception that was in the end zone there in the first half. But I thought both of them stood out on the defensive side of the ball. And then, as I kind of already mentioned it here, but just the last positive I have wrote down here, that first drive of the game. 7 plays, 55 yards, a lot of good stuff moving the ball there, as I said, and they were doing it different ways. Obviously, it helps when you have a running game, and Nate Carter starting out that drive with that nice 19-yard run, and then, being able to slip out. I remember they hit, I believe it was Parachek on the left side, going up for, I think it was about 19 or so there. So a couple big chunk plays there, moving the ball efficiently on that first drive. Just wish he would have executed and converted there at the end. So with that, we'll kind of move into the negatives. 4th and 1 execution. What did we say going into this season with a new staff? Want to see better execution on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, or 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, whatever. 3rd and 4th and short. Want to see better execution because what did the last staff do consistently? Dive up the middle, inside zone up the middle. And that's why after the first game, at least me, was freaking out so much. Not that because I thought it was going to be a long-term issue, but the 2 opportunities that they had in that situation, they did the same thing. They got lucky and got it one of the times, I believe. They had it 2 times. They didn't get it the first time, and then the second time they ran a similar play, similar concept, and they did get it. But you start out the game here, you have that nice drive. The defense holds Ohio State to a field goal. Then you go down your 4th and 1, obviously one of the best field goal kickers in the nation, and you go for it on 4th and 1. And obviously the execution on the 4th and 1, Childs going high instead of on a quarterback sneak, obviously, most of the time you try to go low to get on the center or the guard's back and just, push forward, running back come in, just push forward, drive like that. But he went up top and obviously just got met and stopped right there. And Jonathan Smith's reasoning after the game, I also kind of didn't like. I kind of said it in the stadium after the call. I'm like, I get it's like that. What Jonathan Smith said was, field goals weren't going to win you this game against Ohio State. And it's like, okay, like, I understand, like, you want to score touchdowns, and I know he's talked about before the difference between 3 points and 7 points, how big it is, and especially in a game like this against a very talented, very good team in Ohio State. But in my opinion, especially when first drive of the game, your defense holds you to a field goal, you get all this momentum, you're going down, and then you just, you come up, it's 4th and short, 4th and 1, whatever. And if you had a running game that was averaging, 5-7 yards a carry that, was consistent, you've had a consistent starting offensive line that's worked together, but due to unfortunate injuries, this line's been mixed match. So, like, obviously 4th and 1, that's what you're usually going to do. I just still don't like that call, because if you're going for that call because you're like, oh, we need to do this because we need to, like, it's like, you're just basically saying like we don't belong on the same field as Ohio State. I don't know if I know a lot of people liked going for it on 4th and 1, and I'm usually all for going for it, but in that situation, I just didn't like it because I'm like, defense gets a big win, offense goes down. All right, 4th and 1, but okay, tie it 3-3, and then worst case scenario, Ohio State comes out, scores a touchdown. The next drive, then it's like, okay, now we're still the same thing. But I think so much could have gone wrong. And shout out to the defense for standing up and not letting that snowball, because you have a bad decision like that early on. You go for it, they get stopped. What's the worst thing that can happen? Ohio State comes up and, gets a bomb or scores a touchdown right away. Then you're down 10-0. So I didn't like that call in that situation. Usually I'm all for being aggressive, going for it, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, all for going for it. But I didn't like it in that situation, especially since your defense had just got the stop, held them to a field goal on the other end. Tie the game up. You're all tied up 3-3, and, we're still playing even here. So I just would have went different that way, but moving on, second half juice. Michigan State came out, first 2 drives of the second half, 5 plays and a punt, 3 plays and the interception. Ohio State, on the other hand, first 2 drives of the second half, 13 plays and a touchdown, 3 plays and a touchdown. And from that point, it was 24-7 at halftime. After that, it's 38-7. That's basically the game after the first 2 drives in the second half. Kills any hope and or momentum of, possibly coming back. Not saying it's out of the realm of possibility to coming back, but at that point, especially the way the offense had been going to that point in that game, it was like, okay, now what are we going to do down 38-7? And obviously that was the final score too. But obviously then, Aiden Child and a lot of the starters had been pulled. Ohio State pulled their starters as well. So then backups were in the game, so nothing scored the rest of the game. But would have liked to come out with a little more juice, especially since they got the ball to start that second half as well. But next up, the run game. We kind of already talked about it. 47 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. Just not going to cut it, especially since a team that is this good and this talented. And, we have another test on Friday at Oregon. Another talented front. So, you got to find a way to, get the run game working in any way. Like I said, the run game's not working. You can't just go deep every time. The short passes, the screens, which they scored the touchdown on, but got to do something. It's not going to cut it. Next up, ball security. I don't blame the fumble that Aiden had on him when his face mask could see it 50 rows up in the Spartan Stadium, but when his face mask is being ripped behind his face and then he gets hit and fumbles, I don't really blame him on that one. The Velling fumble, when he's going towards the goal line, like that was putting you right on the doorstep, if not scoring, if you just secure that ball. So that wasn't good. And then the interception by Childs was a bad read, but unfortunately we've seen that a couple times this year. Again, I know everyone hates hearing it, but he's still young. He's gonna make some mistakes like that. It's okay. That's what we keep talking about. I know everyone hates hearing this, but this year is about building for him. And the best way to build is for him to get these reps against these really good teams. Ohio State, Oregon, got tough defense in Iowa, tough defense in Michigan coming down the line. Obviously, then the rest of the schedule too got a lot of good opponents. I think it's 6 of the last 7 games are against teams in the top 25. So he's going to make some mistakes. That's fine. This is learning for him. This is only his 5th game as a starter. So that I'm still not overreacting. I know a lot of people are. I am still not overreacting. Then lastly, just the 3rd and 4th down efficiency, 2 for 9 and 0 for 1 versus Ohio State going 8 for 17 and 3 for 4. On 4th down, that's not going to get it done. You got to be better on 3rd down and 4th down. Put yourself in better situations. So overall for this game, thought the fight was there, especially in the first half, but the self-inflicted errors I felt like just kept adding up and compounded in the second half. And then at that point, it was just kind of out of reach, as I said, when the backups came in for both sides. So, but I did think the fight was in there, and that's good to see. I know we're walking into a very hostile environment, one of the best environments in college football on Friday in Oregon. We'll obviously be back to give a preview for that game. But overall, like I said, thought the fight was there. Obviously, Jonathan Smith going back to Oregon. Obviously, being at Oregon State, playing for Oregon State, being in that rivalry before, I think, the team will be juiced up again on Friday, going into a big-time matchup. Obviously, I think that when the poll came out there, sixth in the country right now. So obviously, and going into the year, they were one of the national championship favorites. So it's going to be a very tough game, but I liked the fight from the guys. Don't think they gave up at all in this game and didn't roll over, which was good to see going forward. Going to take some lumps this year and, maybe even next year, but like the progress that is being made in this game. Still upset with obviously the outcome of the game, but when you think about it rationally, this tracks. We're still building this thing, all right? So everything's going to be good, but anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.